All right, it's the end of the session. I'm here with my buddy. This is Hugo, and this is Barnaby. Now, Hugo, I should say, is a MaeDay dog. Barnaby is not, but he's loved equally. And so this is a roadmap to success. So a couple things. The dogs are, I wanted to have one on my lap, and they didn't want to listen, so I respected what they're saying, because we did talk about dog consent. But one of the things that we found with the dogs is Barnaby's been the only dog for like 10 years. And sometimes he doesn't like it when Hugo comes up, so I'm going to have them here. What I could do is, come here, Barnaby. I call this pair treating. Hopefully you can see them in the video. But what I do is I pull out 2 treats, tell the dogs to sit. When they sit, I say thanks, their marker word. They give them a treat. They take a couple steps and do that. They're practicing sitting next to each other. And so that can be something, maybe grab like 12 treats and do it in 6 places throughout your house. Sit, thanks, walk in the next room, sit, thanks. It's a really simple exercise, but you're helping them practice doing something together. Barnaby's going to like it because Hugo's not jumping up in his face and all the rest. It's more of a controlled thing, but they are practicing doing something together. Now, also, one of the guardians really wanted to cuddle with Barnaby when he was younger, and she kind of held him. And so that can cause dogs to have some issues. So what I'm doing here is I'm letting him chew on the treat, and I'm just reaching my hand towards him. I'm not even touching him. I'm getting him used to this motion. As soon as the treat's gone, I stop doing that. And we'll do that again. Hey, let's have you over here, Hugo. Come here, Barnaby. Come on up. Barnaby. So now, and I'll do it with my other hand. So I'm letting him lick on this treat, and I come here, and I'm just lightly touching him, and I'm petting him. While he's chewing that treat, when the treat's gone, I stop the petting. So this is an exercise, the guardian that was kind of holding him, because he kind of stays a little bit away from her. And so if she does this exercise, and again, walk around your house, hold out, get one of these tricky trainers, smash it flat like a pancake. That way it takes them a little bit longer to do it. Come here, buddy. And again, I can get a little bit of a longer pet. And he's coming over. He can choose not to come over. And then as soon as the treat's gone, again, stop. So this is a nice way for you to start kind of building in a little bit more contact and positive contact in a way that Barnaby likes. Okay, let me see. We also went over shaping. Now, if I don't have the video linked here on how to shape into a play bow, let me know and I can add that in there. But being a puppy or a 2-year-old and Barnaby being 10, they don't really play. Now, the guardians would like to have that happen. And sometimes Hugo wants to, or Barnaby wants to play with Hugo, but then Hugo loses his nerves and runs away. So if we can teach, using shaping, teach Hugo or Barnaby to offer a play bow, that might be a way to facilitate that a little bit. At least, when Hugo comes over and he wants to play and Barnaby is able to be cued into a play bow, that might help them kind of identify that. And if they don't ever play together, that's okay too. They don't have to play with each other. They can enjoy being around each other. Yeah, thanks. All right, so that was celebrating. Remember to celebrate. So when they do the things that you want without you asking, say your marker word and pet them. And try to be observant for this and say celebrate to each other, so that if he walks up and I didn't see it, like right now when somebody says celebrate, I can turn over and I can pet Hugo. Now remember, you want to pet thanks within 2 seconds of them doing the action. So if Barnaby comes and he's laying on the floor for 5 minutes, I walk over and say thanks and pet him, he hasn't done anything novel, so that doesn't count. All right, so that's celebrating, rewarding them when they do things that we like, desired behaviors that we don't ask for. The flip side of that coin is the manners lesson that I talked about, which is if the dog's nudging at you, barking at you, jumping up, instead of rewarding them by petting them or saying, don't do that, because that's a reward for dogs too, we're going to just say, give them a do-over and tell them to sit or to hand target or to lay down. Something else. If they do that, we're only going to ask one time. If they do it within 2 seconds, we say the mark word and pet them. If they do not do it within 2 seconds, there's no punishment. I just go back to what I'm doing. I'm making some art, I'm watching some TV, making out with my partner or whatever it is. And so the dog recognizes that if the human asks me to do something and I don't do it, there's no punishment, but I don't get the reward of the validation that I want. And when I do what the human asks me to do, I know that they want it because they say the marker word and then they pet me or give me a reward or attention. So I know that's what they want. Now, we started off the session by loading the marker word. And by the time you see this, you guys have completed this, but if you haven't, so I want you to grab about 12 treats, and each of you, and go grab a separate dog. Maybe one of the dogs out on a walk when you're doing this. And just say, all you're going to do is their marker word is thanks. So you're just going to say thanks and put a treat in his mouth within 2 seconds. He does not have to sit or lay down or do anything. And then walk around your whole house doing this. Make sure you do it in each room of your house. And don't wait for them to do it. Put thanks and put the treat in there. Well, after a while, you say thanks, they're going to be expecting that treat. So I want you to do that with each one of you, to do that with each dog 6 times. So this is something you really want to get done within a day or 2, and then you'll never have to do it again. Same thing with the clicker. So all we're going to do is we're just going to, I'm going to be ready to go. So I don't want to click because I don't have my treats ready. So I'm ready. Now I have the treat in my hand, and then I give Barnaby the treat. Then I walk in the next room and do the same thing. Also, like you do this with each dog separately for about 12 treats, about 6 times for each dog. Get this done by the end of this weekend. I mean, if not sooner. Really, probably do each one of them 3 or 4 times a day, each one of you, and get it done within a day or 2. After that, then you're going to use your marker word when they do the things you want. Remember the definition of a marker word. It is an indicator that occurs the instant the dog does the action that we want, thanks, unless the action that we want has duration, such as potty or stay. In that case, we would say the marker word at the conclusion of the activity. Now, when I say the marker word, I don't say any other words for 5 seconds. Thanks. Well, I start like, thanks. Oh, you're such a good dog, Barnaby. You're the smartest dog ever. He doesn't speak English. He doesn't know what all the rest of those words mean. The more words we say, the harder it is for the dog to understand. If somebody comes up with negros zapatos, and I'm like, yes, you said black shoes. I know both of those words, because those are the only 2 words you say. If they say it in a paragraph, I'm not going to hear it all. So just say thanks and give them a pet or a treat, and don't say any other words for 5 seconds. Saying good dog is just for you. Your dog already knows you're happy with them. So make it easy, make the word more effective. Now we also went over hand targeting, and that's a great consent exercise, because if you do this, the dog knows how to do it and chooses not to. It's saying, I don't feel comfortable coming near David or the new person to do that. Now remember, you can use that as an alternative recall, and you can also use that to reposition your dog. That's the primary purpose of it. In our puppy class, thanks, we usually tell people we would like the dog to be able to recall from 15 feet away when you use the hand targeting. And so practice in lower level, what I call is NDEs, which is not low distraction environment. Practice on a walk or when there's a lot of people around is a horrible time to practice. You want to practice where it's easy, then gradually make it more and more lifelike and realistic until you work your way up to the real world situation. Kind of like what we talked about for the desensitization part of the video above, where we talked about how to stop dogs from jumping. Now, let me see. We also went over dog consent and body language. So remember, cutoff signals for dogs include leaning away, tilting away, their ears rotating back, turning away, refusing to look at you, licking their lips, freezing, moving away from you or getting away from you. Those are all dogs' way of saying, I don't feel comfortable or I don't like what you're doing. And baring the teeth is a cutoff signal as well. It's just a little bit more assertive one. So when your dog offers those, make sure that you recognize and stop interacting with your dog or stop whatever the action is you're doing with your dog, so your dog doesn't have to raise it to another level. Just like us, dogs are not, dogs are not slaves. They have consent and they have the right to their body. And if we don't listen to them, a lot of dogs learn to nip and bite. So remember, when you're meeting new people, just say, oh, good looking dog. Can I say hi? Yeah, we just ask people to hold their hand out. And you hold your hand out. And if he touches, then say, yeah, he likes being petted on his chin or on his chest or wherever the dog likes it. Remember, petting on top of the head is really not something dogs like. And if you're going to catch yourself doing this, just stop and rotate your hand underneath and pet and do that there. Now, you can pet them everywhere you want. You just don't want to walk up to a dog, lean over them, and tap or pat them on top of the head. It's just about 3 rude things in the dog world. But if you're sitting here and there's the dog, and I got the dog on my lap like this, I'm kind of just petting, and then I kind of eventually work up here, that's totally fine. Unless they give you some cutoff signals that they do, start turning away, or the ears flip back, or the dog pulls its lips back, saying, I don't like this, then I should stop and listen to what the dog has to say so the dog doesn't have to get to a nipping situation. Now, we also talked about exercise. Sniffing on walks burns about twice as much energy than not sniffing. We also talked about playing fetch and incorporating some discipline. So the dog brings the ball back, sit. When they sit, only then do I pick up the ball and throw it. And remember, I say the cue, fetch, as I throw the ball, or boop, as I chop my hand. So you want to make sure the cue comes before the action. This is the formula. So at first, when we're teaching a dog, we don't know for 90% certainty that they're going to do it. We shouldn't say the cue unless we're 90% certain. So all we're doing is we're doing hand targeting. I was going, thanks, and then putting a treat there, and then chopping. And I'm only saying thanks when they do the right thing. So if they don't do the right thing, remember, that's half of how they learn. Nothing happens. And after a while, it gets easier and easier. The dog kind of knows what you're doing. that's when you're ready to introduce the cue. You should only introduce the cue when you're 90% certain when you say the cue, the dog does the action. So then it would be like, boop, the dog touches his nose, then you say thanks, and then you put the treat on the hand and the dog licks it up. So the formula would be, eventually the cue happens, the cue is said, the dog does the action, we say the marker word, and then we provide the reinforcement, which is a treat or a pet or attention afterwards. But while we're teaching dogs, we usually don't say the cue until it's easy to manipulate or lure the dog in that position. And we just use the marker word for the first 10, 20, 50 repetitions. And this is probably over a couple practice sessions. Eventually it's easy. Then you would sneak the cue in and say, find it, like we did for Cookie in the Corner. Remember, for Cookie in the Corner, you're throwing 1, 2, 3, work up to about 6 treats. And you're saying, thanks, 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 thanks for each treat they lick up. When they get done, you say, here. And then you hold the treat down and the dog comes over, you say thanks, and then give them that treat. So that way we can incorporate a little bit of a recall practice exercise. Sorry, I gypped you that time. Because the dog has to come further away in order for us to throw the treats back. Now when you do it, again, don't throw it in places where the dog won't be able to get it. Don't throw it in places you don't want the dog looking. I would like you also to go and Google scent games, S-C-E-N-T. Thanks. That's celebrating a sit. So Google scent games. Find 3 or 4 different scent games that you can do with your dog. And that way you have some things that you can do when guests are over, or if you just need to burn some energy and you're working, you don't have time to go out. Let me see. Also, snuffle mat, get a lick mat, get an omega, paw, tricky, treat ball or 2, and start feeding them out of the snuffle mats. Those are like nice little exercises, ways of getting them some exercise and some mental stimulation. And those omega paws are great balls to let them roll around when guests are here, so they have something else to do. Now they both like to, Hugo likes to lick the Guardian's face. Just get a couple lick mats. When he gets in a licking mood, just pull one of those lick mats out and put it on the floor. Give him an appropriate place to do that. One of the questions I asked you, if you remember, was what behavior do you want your dog to do? Not just saying we don't like a behavior is not appropriate for dogs. We have to say, I don't like the behavior, but this is the behavior we want you to do, like the video we did above. Dog, right now, people come through the door, the dogs jump up. What we want to do instead is when you come through the door, we're going to touch your nose to our hands and you're going to get rewarded for that while you're standing, which is harder for dogs to jump when they're standing than if they sit down. And so we're going to practice that just like we talked in the video, first all over the house and then eventually by the door. Eventually we're going in and out the door, but we're not doing it after being gone for a while. Gradually we work up to that and eventually work on to having other people. So when it comes to dog training, I usually like to tell my clients they should practice about 3 to 5 times a day in 2 to 3 minute practice sessions and always end on a good repetition. The last rep is what your dog's going to remember the brightest. And if you get frustrated because you practice too long, your dog's failing, your dog's going to remember, last time we did hand targeting, you got upset and frustrated. Let's not do that. So don't get to that point. As soon as your dog's doing well and you're about 2 minutes in, 3 minutes in, get a good rep, finish it. And then you can try to do some stuff that your dog likes afterwards. Take your dog out for a game of fetch, rub their belly, or do some things that they really like after that. So that's a nice way to reinforce that activity, that the practice training was a good thing. Remember, training is a great way to drain energy because it also boosts their confidence and self-esteem. All right, let's see. Come here. This is Barnaby boy, and he's in a good-looking dog. And this is the Hugo. Hugo, come here, buddy. Come up here. Come up here. Hey. Come here. Come here, Hugo. You're too short. They're not going to see you there. Well, you guys saw Hugo earlier. Let's see if he'll come up one more time. Well, this is the back of Hugo's head. And this is Hugo and Humphrey's, what did I say, Humphrey? Now I'm making this way too long. Barnaby Jones. Barnaby and Hugo, and this is their roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.